Welcome to 52 Book Reviews and Recommendations. Today, we're having a look at Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw. I didn't do this on purpose, but very recently I read and recommended Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich. And once more, we're back in London and the supernatural. In this case, hands in hand with a doctor. Dr. Helsing. Sounds a bit familiar. Greta Helsing. Greta Helsing is the doctor for the alternative and rather secret parts or people or monsters of London. The vampires, the mummies, the ghouls, whatever, all of this stuff exists, and from time to time they have ailments and need to go see a doctor. That's when they go to Greta Helsing. In this book, we meet Greta Helsing for the first time and experience an adventure together with Greta and her friends. And I guess I'll just start by reading the back cover, as I always do. Meet Greta Helsing, doctor to the undead. After inheriting a highly specialized and highly particular medical practice, Dr. Helsing spends her days treating London's undead for a host of ills. Vocal strain in banshees, arthritis in barrow-rights, and entropy in mummies. Although barely making ends meet, this is just the quiet, supernatural adjacent life Greta dreamt of since childhood. But when a sect of murderous monks emerges, killing humans and undead alike, Greta must use all her unusual skills to keep her supernatural clients and the rest of London safe. Starting out reading this book by Vivian Shaw, did I say that? I hope so. I had just read Rivers of London. And I was a bit like, oh, here's another one. I wonder who was first, which is silly. It's not kind of the thoughts you should have. And it took a little bit, I thought it sounded so funny, the back, like the vocal strain in banshees and the arthritis in barrow-rights and entropy in mummies. It sounds very funny. And it is kind of a little bit funny, true, but it's not as light or funny as the Rivers of London. It's actually a little bit sort of grimier, not as much, but it's got sort of that dark crime kind of, not really horror, but it's just taking itself maybe a little bit more seriously. It's still very sort of British in a way, the way people act and all of this, with the tea drinking and these things. But as I kept on reading, it was just growing on me. It's a fun book, but it's also the kind of book where you really start caring about the characters and the people, or in this case, monsters in it. And they also keep evolving. You get to know their sort of monstrous secrets. There is, not really a spoiler, apparently, a demon in here. And you get to learn things about this sort of underworld of London where these undead exist, which is so much fun. And then in the middle of this, there's like a crime story, essentially. It's like a crime novel. But in this case, it's disillusioned, murderous monks with magical powers, which puts it into the fantasy realm and is why we're here and why I'm recommending this book. Let's see. The sky was fading to ultramarine in the east over the Victorian embankment when a battered Mini pulled into the curb not far from Blackfriars Bridge. Here and there, In the maples lining the riverside walk, the morning's first sparrows had begun to sing. A woman got out of the car and shut the door, swore, put down her bags, and shut the door again, with more applied force. Some fellow motorist had bashed into the panel at some time in the past and bent it sufficiently to make this a procedure every damn time. The Mini really needed to be replaced, but even with her inherited Harley Street consulting rooms, Greta Helsing was not exactly drowning in cash. She glowered at the car and then at the world in general, glancing around to make sure no one was watching from the shadows. Satisfied, she picked up her black working bag and the shapeless oversized monster that was her current handbag and went to ring the doorbell. It was time to replace the handbag too. The leather on this one was holding up, but the lining was beginning to go, and Greta had limited patience regarding the retrieval of items from mysterious dimensions behind the lining itself. The house to which she had been summoned was one of a row of magnificent old buildings separating temple gardens from the embankment, mostly taken over by lawyers and publishing firms these days. It was a testament to this particular homeowner's rather special powers of persuasion that nobody had succeeded in buying the house out from under him and turning it into offices for overpriced attorneys, she thought, and then had to smile at the idea of anybody dislodging Edmund Ruthhaven from the lair he'd inhabited these 200 years or more. He was as much a fixture of London as Lord Nelson on his pillar, just less crusted with birdlime. "Greta," said the fixture, opening the door. "Thanks for coming out on a Sunday. I know it's late." She was just about as tall as he was, 5 foot and a bit, which made it easy to look right into his eyes and be struck every single time by the fact that they were very large, so pale a grey they looked silver white, except for the dark rings at the edges of the iris, and fringed with heavy soot-black lashes of the sort you saw in advertisements for mascara. He looked tired, she thought, tired and older than the 40-ish he usually appeared. The extreme pallor was normal, vivid against the pure slick-back black of his hair, but the worried line between his eyebrows was not. "It's not Sunday night, it's Monday morning," she said. "No worries, Ruthhaven. Tell me everything. I know you didn't go into lots of detail on the phone." "Of course." He offered to take her coat. "I'll make you some coffee." The entryway of the embankment house was floored in black and white checkered marble, and a large bronze ibis stood on a little side table where the mail and car keys and shopping lists were to be found. The mirror behind this reflected Greta dimly and greenly, like a woman under water. She peered into it, making a face at herself, and tucked back her hair. It was pale Scandinavian blonde and cut like lists in an off-the-shoulder bob, fine enough to slither free of whatever she used to pull it back. Today it was in the purpose of escaping from a thoroughly childish headband. She kept meaning to have it all chopped off and be done with it, but never seemed to find the time. Greta Helsing was 34, unmarried, and had taken over her late father's specialized medical practices after a brief stint as an internist at King's College Hospital. For the past 5 years, she had run a bare-bones clinic out of Wilfred Helsing's old rooms in Harley Street, treating a patient base that to the majority of the population did not technically, when you got right down to it, exist. It was a family thing. There had never been much doubt which subspecialty of medicine she would pursue once she began her training. Treating the differently alive was not only more interesting than catering to the ordinary human population, it was in many ways a great deal more rewarding. She took a lot of satisfaction in being able to provide help to the particularly underserved clients. Greta's patients could largely be classified under the heading of monstrous, in its descriptive rather than pejorative sense. Vampires, were-creatures, mummies, banshees, ghouls, boogeymen, the occasional arthritic barrow-wight. She herself was solidly and entirely human, with no noticeable eldritch qualities or powers whatsoever, not even a flicker of metaphysical sensitivity. Some of her human patients found it difficult to trust a human physician at first, but Greta had built up an extremely good reputation over the 5 years she'd been practicing supernatural medicine. Largely by word of mouth. Go to Helsing. She's reliable. And discreet. That was the first and fundamental tenet. After all, keeping her patients safe meant keeping them secret, and Greta was good with secrets. She made sure the magical wards around her doorway and hallway street kept up properly, protecting anyone who approached from prying eyes. Ruth Haven appeared in the kitchen doorway, outlined by light spilling warm over the black and white marble. "Greta," he said, and she straightened up, realizing she'd been staring into the mirror without really seeing it for several minutes now. It really was late. Fatigue lapped heavily at the pilings of her mind. "Sorry," she said, coming to join him, and a little of that heaviness lifted as they passed through into the familiar warmth and brightness of the kitchen. It was all blue-tiled and blonde wood. The cheerful rose gold of polished copper pots and pans balanced the sleek chill of stainless steel, and right now is also full of a scent of really good coffee. Ruth Haven's espresso machine was a La Timbali, and it was serious business. He handed her a large pottery mug. She recognized it as one of the set he'd generally used for blood, and had to smile a little, looking down at the contents, and then abruptly had to clamp down on a vague, thoroughly inconvenient emotion. There was no reason that Ruth Haven doing goddamn latte art for her at 4:30 in the morning should make her want to cry. He was good at it too, which was a little infuriating. Then again, she supposed with that much free time on her hands as he had on his, and as much a disposable income, she might find herself learning and polishing new skills simply to stave off the encroaching spectre of boredom. Ruth Haven didn't go in for your standard variety vampire angst, which was refreshing, but Greta knew very well that he had bouts of something not unlike depression, especially in the winter, and he needed things to do. She, however, had things to do, Greta reminded herself, taking a sip of the latte and closing her eyes for a moment. This was coffee that actually tasted as good as, if not better, than it smelled. Focus, she thought. This was not a social call. The lack of urgency in Ruth Haven's manner led her to believe that the situation was not immediately dire, but she was nonetheless here to do her job. Greta licked the coffee foam from her upper lip, so she said, "Tell me what happened." There we are, just the first pages. This is obviously a series of books, I believe. I wonder if we can see. We can't really, but I'm just assuming it is. And I'm going to be buying more of them, honestly. Again, a fun world. I just like the fact that we're in London so that I can be back in London for a little bit. But there's not tons of focus on that. It's mainly focused on the characters, and I think they're interesting and pleasant, and it's fun to get to know them. There's quite an exciting sort of main story, but all the little stories of the characters are fun to see and read how they evolve. So I'm gonna get my hands on more of this. Warmly recommend Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And if you wish to support the channel with small means, you can just follow the link down below and buy me a coffee. See you in the next one. Bye.